You know what still surprises me? A man can plant something in his yard, water it, watch it fruit, maybe even feel a little proud of it, and then one day find out that the same plant could cost him thousands of dollars, get ripped out by the state, or in the worst cases, leave him staring at the kind of legal trouble he never saw coming. I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm not talking about mushrooms. I'm talking about fruit. And I'm telling you right now, a lot of gardeners in this country have no idea how close that line really is. A few towns over from where I used to know people in the gardening crowd, there was a man who thought he was doing something harmless. Just growing a fruiting plant he liked. Nothing wild. Nothing that looked dangerous. The kind of thing most neighbors would walk past without thinking twice. Then the notices started. Then the warnings got more serious. And before long, he was not just being told to remove it. He was hearing words nobody expects to hear over a backyard plant. Fines, violations, possible jail time if he kept pushing it. That is the part most people do not understand. In America, there are fruiting plants that do not just sit in the cute little category of unusual garden choices. Some can poison you. Some can carry diseases officials take incredibly seriously. Some are banned, restricted, quarantined, or treated like invasive threats depending on the state. And some look so ordinary, so harmless you could have one growing right down the street and never suspect it was the kind of plant authorities already have on their radar. So in this video, we are going through the fruiting plants that can get gardeners into real trouble. Legal trouble, agricultural trouble, medical trouble, sometimes all three at once. And the first one on this list? It looks almost cheerful. Ackee is one of those fruits that can fool you on looks alone. Bright red pods, smooth black seeds, soft yellow flesh tucked inside. If you didn't know any better, you'd think it belonged in the category of tropical fruit people brag about growing once they've got enough heat and patience. It doesn't feel dangerous when you first look at it. That's exactly why it deserves to be here. Because ackee is not dangerous in some vague, dramatic internet story way. It's dangerous in a very specific, very unforgiving way. Get it at the wrong stage, and it contains a toxin called hypoglycin A. Not a little irritation. Not a stomachache story you laugh off later. We're talking severe poisoning, vomiting, blood sugar crashing hard, coma, death in the worst cases, and that changes the whole mood around this plant. Once you know that the line between edible and dangerous depends on proper ripeness and handling, ackee stops sounding like a fun backyard experiment and starts sounding like something most people have no business getting casual with. That's the reason officials treat it differently. The problem isn't just that it can go wrong. The problem is how badly it can go wrong if someone thinks, well, fruit is fruit. How risky can it be? That assumption is where people get themselves in trouble. Because the thing about plants like this is they don't announce themselves as a problem. Ackee doesn't look like a warning label. It looks attractive. It looks almost friendly. And that makes it a perfect first example for this list. It shows you right away that once fruit crosses into toxin territory, the backyard gardening mindset can become a liability. And from there, the next turn is even stranger, because the next fruit isn't mainly a danger to the person eating it. It's a danger to what it helps spread. Now, black currant is where this story starts getting more unsettling in a different way. Because if you saw black currants in a garden, you probably wouldn't think problem plant. You'd think old-fashioned berry bush, jam, syrup. Maybe somebody with a taste for the kind of fruit supermarkets barely bother stocking anymore. It has that innocent feel to it. Even a little charming, honestly. But some of the toughest plant rules don't come from how a fruit tastes or whether it can hurt you directly. They come from what that plant can host. And that is where black currant steps into a very different category. In some states, currants and gooseberries have long been tied to concerns over white pine blister rust. So suddenly this isn't just a berry bush anymore. It becomes part of a larger agricultural and forestry problem. A homeowner sees fruit. The state sees disease risk. And once that happens, the conversation changes fast. That's what makes black currant such a good example of the hidden line people miss. A lot of gardeners still think of plant trouble in very simple terms: poisonous or not, legal or illegal, safe or unsafe. But agriculture rarely works in neat little boxes like that. A fruit can be edible, beautiful, productive, and still become restricted because of the role it plays in a bigger chain of damage. That's the part that catches people off guard. Because once the issue becomes disease hosting, you're no longer arguing from personal preference. You're not saying, well, I'm not hurting anyone. Officials are looking past your fence line. They're thinking about forests, commercial interests, spread pathways, long-term losses. And whether people like that logic or not, that is exactly how ordinary fruiting plants end up under rules most homeowners never see coming. So by this point, the list has already done two things. Aki shows you a fruit can become dangerous because of what it does to the human body. Blackcurrant shows you a fruit can become dangerous because of what it carries into the wider landscape. And then you get to a tree. America didn't just tolerate, it promoted it. This one may be the most frustrating story in the whole bunch, because calorie pear didn't sneak into people's yards by accident. It was sold as a good idea. For years, this tree got treated like the answer to a whole set of suburban problems. Pretty white bloom in spring, fast growth, tough enough to handle rough conditions, easy to plant, easy to sell. It looked clean, ornamental, dependable. The kind of tree people put in front yards without a second thought because it seemed safe, familiar, and already approved by the culture around them. And that's what makes the reversal so sharp. Because what looked like a tidy ornamental tree turned into one of those plant states started viewing very differently once the long-term damage became impossible to ignore. Birds spread the fruit, seedlings escaped, thickets formed, native plants got squeezed out. What began as a landscaping choice stopped behaving like a landscaping choice. It started behaving like an invader. And this is the kind of story that really matters for gardeners, because it proves something people don't like admitting. Just because a plant was sold to you, recommended to you, or planted all over town does not mean it was ever truly harmless. Sometimes it just means the consequences took longer to show up. Calorie pear is that lesson in tree form. You can almost feel the disbelief in it. The same kind of plant people once lined streets with is now the kind some states have turned against outright. And when that happens, it changes the tone for anyone still thinking in the old, comfortable way, the way that says, if it came from a nursery, how bad could it really be? Bad enough that the answer changed. That's why calorie pear hits harder than some of the more exotic plants on this list. It doesn't feel distant. It feels familiar. It feels like the kind of tree a neighbor might still have in the yard right now. Maybe flowering beautifully, maybe dropping fruit, maybe still looking perfectly innocent while the state has already moved on to a very different opinion. And once you've seen that happen, you start looking at helpful fruiting shrubs with a lot more suspicion, because the next plant on this list was also sold as useful, also treated like a smart choice. And it came with its own long-term bill. Autumn olive is exactly the kind of plant that gets people in trouble, because it arrives wearing the mask of usefulness. You look at it and think, well, I can see why somebody planted that. It fruits. Birds go after it. It handles rough ground. It doesn't act delicate. In fact, for a long time, that was part of the appeal. This shrub got pushed as something practical, something that could help with poor sites, wildlife cover, all those situations where people wanted a plant that felt like it was doing a job. And on the surface, it was. That's what makes the story dangerous. The trouble with autumn olive didn't show up in the first sales pitch. It showed up later, when the birds had already moved the seeds, when the shrub had already slipped past the yard and out into field edges, roadsides, and open ground where it had no intention of staying put. Once it gets comfortable, autumn olive doesn't behave like a helpful little fruiting shrub anymore. It spreads. It thickens. It starts taking up space that native plants used to occupy, and it does something even more frustrating than that. It changes the ground it grows in. That part matters. Because now, you're not just dealing with a bush that got a little too enthusiastic. You're dealing with a plant that can shift the conditions around it and make life harder for the things that belong there in the first place. That's when the whole tone changes. A gardener might still be looking at the berries and thinking in small terms. Something productive, something hardy, maybe even something worth defending because, after all, it feeds birds and seems easy to grow. State agencies are looking at the same plant and seeing an invasive problem that keeps stepping farther out of bounds. And that right there is one of the biggest themes running through this whole video. A lot of the plants that cause the worst long-term trouble don't start out looking sinister. They start out looking useful. Useful is often how the damage gets invited in. So if calorie pear was the warning about a tree Americans were too quick to trust, autumn olive is the warning about the fruiting shrub that looked practical right up until the landscape had to start paying for it. And once you've seen one helpful plant turn on the place it was introduced to, the next one makes even more sense, especially if you live out west, where water and tough ground change the whole equation. Russian olive has a rougher feel to it from the start. It doesn't come across like a pretty suburban tree, it feels scrappier than that. Silvery foliage, thorny branches, small olive-like fruit, the sort of plant people admire for surviving where softer, fussier plants would just give up. You can almost hear the old recommendation in the background: hardy, drought-tolerant, tough enough to handle difficult ground. And sure, toughness sounds good right up until you realize what kind of plant you've actually given room to settle in. Because Russian olive is one of those plants that can outlast the gardener's original intentions. Birds carry the fruit. Seeds move. Root suckers help it come back. The branches don't exactly make removal a pleasant afternoon job either. Once it starts spreading along waterways, open land, and disturbed areas, the conversation stops being about one tree and starts becoming about a plant that doesn't mind making itself permanent. That's the part people underestimate all the time. They think in terms of what they planted. Officials think in terms of what comes next. Not the first season, not the little bit of shade it gave near the fence. What comes after the birds do their work. After the roots start answering every removal attempt with a fresh push of growth. After the plant begins acting less like landscaping and more like a foothold. And out in dry states, that kind of foothold gets taken seriously for good reason. When a plant is already good at surviving, hard to remove, and willing to spread beyond where it was invited, nobody in agriculture or land management is going to shrug that off just because it bears fruit. That's why Russian olive belongs on a list like this, not because the fruit itself looks dramatic, it doesn't. The danger sits in the whole plant and the whole pattern that follows it. It's one more reminder that a fruiting plant does not need to look flashy to become a long-term headache. By now, the pattern should feel pretty clear. Some plants on this list are dangerous because they can poison people. Some because they escape. Some because they turn one person's yard choice into everybody else's land problem. Then there's the next category, the older, heavier kind of trouble. The kind tied to crops, disease, and rules that have been around long enough to outlive the people who first argued for them. Common barberry carries that kind of weight. You can feel it the second the story moves onto it. This isn't some trendy plant panic, and it's not one of those internet scares people pass around for a week and forget. Common barberry has been tangled up with agricultural fear for a very long time, and once you understand why, the old suspicion around it starts making a lot more sense. Because what puts this plant on the radar is not the fruit by itself. It's the role the plant can play in the life cycle of wheat stem rust. That changes everything. The average person sees a shrub with bright fruit and maybe a bit of ornamental charm. Agriculture sees a host plant in a disease story big enough to shape policy. And when a plant gets linked to something that can hammer grain crops, the government's patience tends to disappear pretty quickly. That's why common barberry has such a different feel from some of the other plants on this list. With calorie pear or autumn olive, you can tell a story about landscaping mistakes and long-term ecological blowback. With common barberry, the energy gets older, sharper, almost more severe. It belongs to that category of plants that were not treated as a casual nuisance. They were treated as a real agricultural threat. And honestly, once a plant gets folded into that kind of history, it never fully shakes it off. That's the part gardeners miss when they assume a plant's past doesn't matter anymore. They think, well, maybe it was a problem back then. Maybe the rules were for commercial growers. Maybe nobody would care about a few shrubs now. But that's not always how these systems work. Some fears linger because the underlying biology never stopped being relevant. The plant is still the plant. The disease host is still the disease host. The logic that built the rule may get more technical over time, but it doesn't just evaporate because the average homeowner stopped paying attention. So common barberry stays important because it shows you something deeper than simple restriction. It shows how a fruiting shrub can become part of a much bigger agricultural memory, one that officials don't forget just because the plant looks decorative to everybody else. And if that sounds old-fashioned, almost like a warning from another era, the last plant in this first half brings it right back into the present, because citrus states still care very deeply about the wrong host in the wrong place. Trifoliate orange is not the kind of plant most people expect to hear about in a warning video. It doesn't have the lush, tempting feel of a fruit people daydream about growing. It's tougher, thornier, more functional than romantic. The fruit is small and sour. The plant itself often gets talked about more like a useful citrus relative than a prize tree anybody is showing off to the neighborhood. And that's exactly why it works so well here at the end. Because by the time you get to trifoliate orange, this list has already taught you the big lesson. Plants don't need to look dramatic to become a problem. They don't need to scream danger. Sometimes the ones that matter most are the ones that seem too ordinary, too obscure, or too practical for anyone to worry about. That's where people let their guard down. Trifoliate orange matters because when disease control systems start looking at citrus pathways, they are not thinking like hobby gardeners. They are thinking about vectors, host material, spread routes, quarantine logic. In that world, a tough little citrus relative stops being some oddball plant at the back of the property and starts becoming part of a much larger concern. And that's what makes it unsettling. Not because it sounds terrifying on its own, because it doesn't. It sounds manageable, maybe even forgettable. But agriculture has a way of paying the closest attention to the plants people stop noticing. The rough ones, the rootstock types, the quiet hosts that don't look like headline material until disease enters the picture. Then suddenly they matter a lot. That is why trifoliate orange is such a strong place to close this first part. It leaves you with the reminder that trouble in the garden doesn't always arrive in a flashy form. Sometimes it comes disguised as utility. Sometimes it comes disguised as toughness. Sometimes it comes disguised as a plant nobody would ever guess belonged on a forbidden fruit list in the first place. And that is exactly the point. So that's the first half of the story, not just fruits that can hurt you, but fruiting plants that cross into a completely different category once you understand what's really attached to them. Aki showed how narrow the line can be between edible and dangerous when a toxin is involved. Black currant and common barberry showed how a berry or shrub can stop being just a plant. The second disease risk enters the picture. Calorie pear, autumn olive, and Russian olive showed what happens when something sold as useful, hardy, or beautiful refuses to stay inside the role people assign to it. And trifoliate orange closed the door with the quietest warning of all, that sometimes the plants drawing the least attention are the ones officials are watching most carefully. And if that feels unsettling, it should, because the second half gets stranger. Some of the plants still ahead look even more harmless, more familiar, more edible, in a few cases more attractive than anything you heard about today. Which is probably why so many people never see the problem until they're already standing too close to it. Until next time,